This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large printed materials are available upon advance request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202. The notice of non-discrimination rights and protections to beneficiaries with regard to Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protections is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202 for more information. All right, so I want to begin the roll call.
Great, I will, Doug, and just for Alex's understanding as well. So the accessibility statement, because we receive federal funding, it is read at the JTC, it's read at the MPO meeting, it's read at our council meeting. It's just a matter of that we receive funding and that we do all that we can to accommodate people so they can participate in this meeting. So roll call, Chairman Doug Silvestri.
Present.
Christine Joy. Sandy Wright.
Present.
Lee Hartman.
Present.
And for guest, we have Bob Moran. And for staff, it's Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do this because Alex, you are here. Alex Haggerty.
Present.
Thank you. I apologize. And for staff is Charlie Kilmer and Mary Waldron. So the next item on is the minutes of the meeting.
Yes. Yeah, for the meeting of June 29th, last meeting. If everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, if there's any questions.
I did not get the minutes. I think there's something screwy going on with my email. So I'm just going to abstain from this. So
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and vote the minutes. But yeah, I did not get a chance to read them prior to tonight.
Can you see these up? Can you see the minutes up now?
Yep.
I did see them. I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes. Yeah. The meeting minutes for, what was the date? July,
Was June
Good.
29th.
June 29th. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Second that.
Okay, good. And on the roll call will be Doug Silvestri,
Accept.
Sandra Wright,
Except,
Lee Hartman,
I was not present, but I will vote to accept, noting it as complete.
thank you, Christine Joy.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't seen them.
And Alex, since you're new, but I don't know if you had a chance to see them or not, but I'm going to call your name anyway. You
Do
can
you
abstain.
need,
I think
yeah,
you
yeah,
can.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't at the meeting, so.
That's great. Nope, that's great.
I did read it though.
Perfect. Thank you. And next on the agenda is the,
June financials.
yeah, thank you. Sorry. Not showing up on my apologies, everybody. Let me do this another way. It's nothing easy.
So which one are you looking for? The
Yep. I am,
financial Word document?
yeah, I'm gonna,
Or budget?
it's not coming up for some reason on my,
So is it the financial report for June?
it is,
Yeah.
Yep.
You want to share, if you want to let me share, I have it up.
okay, great, thank you. I'm gonna do that right now. Okay. See, technical difficulties. Thank you, Lee.
All right, we good?
So this is Brenda's cheat sheet, but it works. There was another document that said, so that this literally is what, when she speaks, this is what she says. Yep, thank you, Lee. It is the
Excel.
the financial packet, the 8 megabyte, that's the one. Thank you. Perfect.
Did you just want me to read over what she had already?
Would
Yeah,
you,
that's
please?
fine.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep, so this is gonna be the statement of expenditures, which shows total expenses for the month of $201,549.47. If you want to scroll down. Next up would be the cash position report. That shows an income for the month of $693,038.89. Disbursements for the month were $317,130.92. So total cash available at month's end was $1,718,849. The OPEB account had a gain, which was $3,881.51, which brings the ending balance in the account to $877,272.61.
So where's the OPEB one?
The blue circle.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
right at the bottom of that sheet. So the budget resource report, we had total receipts for the month being $693,038.89.
That's like
Which-
scrolling down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which will bring the cumulative receipts for the fiscal year to $3,828,153.55.
Yep.
So for the AAA report, pass-through total community billing total for fiscal year 22 is at $639,923, bringing the remaining fund balance to $1,890,450. The ombudsman and admin funds billing total is $99,586, which brings the remaining balances in the admin and ombudsman to a total of $308,212.
That's okay. That's it.
There it is, yep.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, because volunteer transportation is going to be next up. That's if you go up a little more. Yeah, right there, that bottom. That'll be volunteer transportation is actually starting to move because of the restrictions. So payment to drivers in June was a total of $734.39, which brings the balance of funds account to $185,966.73.
So Alex, if just on that, I think what I'm going to recommend at some point is that a separate meeting with David Klein, who is a Abington resident, to have you sit down. It's pretty complex in terms of AAA.
Yeah,
To have an explanation of that.
thank you.
So for May 2021 statements, the balance at the beginning of May was $178,148.59. June receipts were $5,850, which brings the total receipts to $70,200. Expenses were for the month of June were $6,130.21, which brings the total ROM expenses for the entire fiscal year of 21 to $77,303.63. So the ending balance in the ROM bank account at the end of the fiscal year was $183,925.46. So now she talked about the final, this is going to be the final budget report. So page 1 of the operating budget shows final expenditures at a total, I don't think this is the right
Nope,
slide.
it's not, there we go.
No, it's that one, yep. So yeah, so the final expenditures, because fiscal year 21 is officially in the books, has a total of $1,838,791. So that is $516,819 less than the actual projected budget, which because of COVID-19. So the surplus that was put into that fiscal year budget was never used. So page 2 shows recorded income for a total of $2,007,332. So it's $40,138 less than originally projected budget due to the changes in grant activity related to COVID-19. Some grant income on grants is not included in the original budget, which those additions were also offset by the changes in the original projections. So page 3 shows the final pass-through activity for the fiscal year of 21. The actual pass-through funds received shows that our original projected amount was reduced by $1,094,085. AAA historically falls behind our fiscal close by a few months. So with that said, the number will change with AAA activity over the next few months. But those changes will reflect added funds and carryover that will not show up until fiscal year 22. So to summarize, posted income from grant programs, other miscellaneous sources came to $2,007,232. The actual expenses was $1,838,791, which left a budget surplus, which will be added into the miscellaneous account for upcoming fiscal 22 is going to be $168,441.
That's a lot. And Lee, thank you. I know, see, it's sometimes when Brenda is like reading through this, keeping up with them, what Lee is showing now is in the past, members of the council had liked to see what the checks are. And so this is just a total disbursement and where the checks are going to. That's what Lee is showing right now. Lee, we can try to have me take over from here. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Chair, if there's any other questions.
I mean, did anybody have any other questions with the budget now that it's officially in the books?
I'm all set with it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
Mary, did you think we ended up where you were anticipating that we were going to have a good sized surplus?
Yes, I actually was a little bit surprised that we had that kind of surplus because of the merit increases that we proposed along the way. And I think that's where having that little bit of cushion, particularly heading into the new fiscal year. Again, you know, we're all trying to be conservative in our budgets and how we are presenting them, and being, you know, I'd rather be having that surplus than not having that surplus.
Great, thank you very much.
And I will note for the projected budget that is now not as for this year, they do have accountable for the extra positions that they might want to hire for salaries.
Doug, can you say that again?
So the budget that was projected for fiscal year 22 that we're on now has in it the salaries for positions, for future positions. So I know
Okay.
we had talked about maybe an admin assistant.
That
That
is-
money is accounted for in the budget as well.
So that would be a position to assist you, Mary, and staff as well?
That the defining, yes. So I'm going to answer that with a definitive yes. The room is there to hire someone who could assist me. The defining of the job description, because I really want to be able to encompass some of the other needs that the other departments have as well, i.e., and when we talked about earlier at the with Alex, I mean, having some conversations about, you know, someone to do data mining and someone who can really work on communications. We have a part-time communications person, but is that enough? Do we need someone to work with me? So I'm connecting with the legislators and, you know, not having to, you know, so the answer is that there is that funding, and how it gets defined and how soon it can get up and running is maybe more the question. I think that I really need to have a little bit more conversations with managers about what other needs, so the person that I hire can have again, the ability to outreach and work with me on communications and helping with a newsletter and helping me with the, potentially with a website. On a side note, there's additional funding that will be coming to AAA. It won't be ready to be present to council. It'll be ready for the September council meeting, but there'll be some additional funding coming that in there, and that we're looking to hire somebody that can assist David Klein and staff, and also Brenda. Because Brenda is a one-person shop. She has things coming at her. She's got an audit. She's working on HR. It's again, talking about another overload, but she never complains. But in evaluating and looking what she has on her plate, it would be helpful when the AAA is hiring somebody with those grant funds that I believe that are for a 3-year period, that we can make sure that that person not only is helping with project management for the elder services and the funding related to that, but also to help with the financial management for AAA.
Okay. Mary, do you, and I know it's super early, would you anticipate this assistant being a full-time position?
A full-time position to be doing other work for other departments.
Okay, yeah, not necessarily full-time for you, but full-time for you and helping all the other departments that
That's a
need
good
some.
question. I've gone back and forth. Do we do part-time? I think I've got to really take a look at what the needs are, and if finding the right person to do part-time work can be beneficial if you find the right person. So I think it's a little bit too early to tell, but we are considering both part-time and a full-time. But the full-time, try to fit that one size fit all person that can do what I'm looking for, might be a little bit hard. But until you go out there and to promote and figuring out the right salary, because we certainly know, right, that the environment. I mean, when I hear from others in the field that, what we're doing here, what we, the council and what the staff are doing, we're like the new MAPC and kind of being, cutting edge and being, involved and engaged with our communities and being the leaders in holding webinars. So, so to answer, long story, to be determined, but it's not going to be something I'm going to wait for next fiscal year. It'll be something over the next couple months. I will be honest, and I need, after this council meeting and my PMC ride, which is August 7th and 8th, I'm taking a little bit of some R&R just to decompress. So I figured what I'm going to be doing is in the month of August, start looking at formulating that job description, going through the personnel committee, having it come before finance, having staff input, and maybe having something be advertised by September, with the hopes of, we've been really lucky and not really taking 2 months to hire someone. We've been really lucky about finding someone to be hired within a month's period of time.
Okay. All right. Well, to report back from a meeting that Lee, Stephen, and I had with Dottie, there is, our belief was that Mary definitely needed some administrative help. She's got just so much on her plate, and we felt like she needed somebody. We didn't say full-time or part-time. I mean, I would think it would be a full-time, that you've got so much that you've got going on, and we really felt that this was something that was important to your health and the health of the council, the whole team you've put together. So I indicated that I would report that back to you, Doug and Sandy, that we felt strongly that, and what we discussed with Dottie were survey results that she had done with staff, and the staff was very supportive too. They also felt that we're concerned that Mary's got so much on her plate, and they wanted to support her as well, so that she can continue to function efficiently and effectively in her role as director. So that's what we were hoping, something that we could do something sooner rather than later to get Mary some much needed help.
So I'd like to tune in there for a little bit. It's about time, Mary, that we're looking for somebody to give you as an assistant. Total agreement with you. I'm just wondering, with the funding that we have put aside, is that including benefits, or is that not figured into?
No, it's figured in. It's all inclusive. Brenda does a pretty decent job of
Mhm.
incorporating all those
Yeah.
benefits and things of that nature.
Okay,
So what I will do is, because there's a strong likelihood that we're not going to have an August meeting.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed. That's fingers crossed.
Yes.
It's not doing anything else to you. That's fingers crossed. But that we can take just a little bit, and then I'll be ready to have a job description and move that forward. I don't necessarily need to have. I mean, the money's in the budget. We're talking about it here at finance, but I will more informational, as I always do. If there's a notice, if there's a position that is posted, I try to run it by council members, just say, this is what we're looking to post to get some input. So
Great. Thanks, Mary. Glad to hear you're going to recharge your battery.
thank you.
Not that I don't want an August meeting, but I think that there's a lot of work that you all are trying to catch up with, and not having to plan and get ready for these meetings might, help you a little bit too, so.
Yep. Thank you. And I do appreciate the support that all of you have given, not only to myself, but Charlie and others. Doug, I think did you see me kind of going right on to the next item? There
Keep it flowing. Keep it
it's
flowing.
Is it the ROM? I got the ROM budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I gotta
It's
share.
just the projections on that. I mean, they're all fixed costs pretty much with ROM, so.
They are. And
Yeah.
we've been kind of slow and steady. I mean, they're just some of the things, like we just renewed our insurance policy, and they helped us kind of see what the market is. And Charlie, Brenda, and I sat down recently in terms of, there's an opportunity to go with a different company, and what the deductibles are. It was done in a quick period of time, but we feel that we're still in good shape with our building, and keeping status quo for right now is where we are. So this is the final budget from, I think Brenda wanted these shared just to make sure that people have some, because she had a proposed budget, and now knowing what the final numbers from FY21, she now is moving forward with FY22.
Mary, have you told Alex what the ROM account is?
I have not. That's a good.
No, not this discussion.
Yeah. So, he should probably be brought up to speed on that.
Do you want to take a stab, Sandy?
Do I know? Myself. Sometimes I'm confused on it.
No, it's a fair question. I'm glad you brought this up. So this is all part of a learning curve for everyone, rather than being thrown into it. So the Old Colony Planning Council has its council, its governmental entity, and it also has a 501c3. The Old Colony, the regional operational management, and that serves as it is kind of like it's where our audit goes through. So it's the two entities coming together to function. So ROM owns the building. They are the manager. They're the owner of the buildings. The council members, the executive committee council members, serve as the same members from the Old Colony as the ROM, Old Colony Planning Council entity, and there is a relationship, and making sure. So when we present the financials on a monthly basis, we bring in as an FYI for the ROM budget. As you can, as you saw, that it is not quite as big as a $3 million budget that we have between grants and funding sources, but it's substantial enough in terms of utilizing as I said, it's a nonprofit status. So this was established many years ago under Dan Crane, and has continued on as. So there's some possibilities for the ROM, that being a 501c3, we've talked about internally about using that status to apply for grant funding that could be helpful to our communities. But right now, they're the owners of the building. It's sort of like a status quo, and its possibilities of doing more in obtaining grant funding is being explored as we are coming back together and being more engaged. Did I do okay with that, Charlie, or did I miss something?
No, that was very good.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You think
Just like
after
we
a,
rehearsed.
you think after a year and a half I would get this down, but it is complex and
And it does pay a portion of your salary as well.
it does. And that's a very good point where it had been $5,000 as a management fee would go toward my salary. As the council members know, and the finance committee particularly knows, that we spent a lot of time, and not just me, but Charlie and Brenda, on the maintenance. I've been up on the roof, I've been on ladders, I've been picking up trash. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I know. And Nora's in a minute, I know. We'll have to figure all of that piece out. But so we've upped it to 7,500. And that doesn't mean it goes directly to my salary, because I think internally we've talked about having some of it be as part of Brenda's salary as well. Charlie's it doesn't touch because he's all Mass dot salary, but he does do the work and helping us out. So, so we can talk a little bit more. And I think there was discussion about having just a separate ROM to really kind of run through it, the history of it, which is probably most people will be falling asleep during of it, but it is an entity and it's part of who we are. It's part of our audit when the auditors come in, and it's an important role for us to be in existence. So,
I'm sure most of the council members could probably use that refresher course as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, that's true. And where the members change, throughout the year, it's always good to refresh us and bring them up to speed and, what the ROM is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I am bringing, so Brent had also asked for a final copy of the FY22 budget, which she's saying this is the proposed, see the arrow right there, she did a really nice job of this. And for Alex's purposes, this was approved at the June, it was approved at the June 30th meeting. Yep. But it continues on for July, just because, again, closing out the books of FY21 and presenting it. And because of input from council members, whether it was, Doug himself or whether it was Christine, but really kind of getting a comparative analysis, FY21 budget, FY22. She did a great job of even bringing us back to FY20. You want to see where we've been, what's happened. Yep, we had a blip with COVID, what we continue to do. And now, this budget was a little bit harder to kind of go through because we're out of COVID, or are we going back into COVID? Like, you really wanted to make sure that it was not under budget, but yet also not inflating it either. So, and if need be, if you have any questions about any of these, you will see one of the questions that have come up. What's the difference between administrative books and, and advertising? There seems to be some repetitive names, but in the chart of accounts, there are specific reasons that Brenda has these titles, and a little bit too long today to go through, but I would be more than happy to set up a time with Brenda so we can go over, again, what's the difference between payroll and other services, and payroll tax is obviously the same. Why printing here? So it's pretty detailed, but we can set up, like I said, another time to go over this.
Sure. Awesome. Wonderful.
Thank you for that, Mary.
Did you
Yeah.
need me to go through? I closed the screen and I apologize, but did you need me to go through that at all?
No, I mean, that was voted in at our last council meeting, so I'm sure we all have an understanding
Yes.
of that projected budget.
Great.
So that would move us along to, did you have a question?
I said, it looks like it's been tightened up too, with not so many duplicate items on there. So that's even a whole lot better, which I appreciate.
Yeah, with the final numbers in, it's so much easier to kind of just, squeeze everything where it's supposed to go. So next up is the man in the myth himself, Bob Moran, and his presentation on
Oh my
the OPEB.
goodness.
Bob, so nice to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, it is
Thanks,
nice
man.
to see everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks you, Mary, and welcome, Alex. We haven't had a chance to meet, but you're in a good group here, and hopefully you come right up to speed and enjoy it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so welcome. So I think the committee is aware that Mary and Christine have reached out and asked me to be involved with the review of OPEB. And I just thought tonight I might sort of set the context for that and, do a quick review and share what I think are a couple of questions I'm going to be looking at. It's funny, a lot of times people will talk about the origin story. I was there in the beginning. I won't take the credit. I'll give Pat Charamella the credit. Pat saw OPEB as an unfunded liability that we needed to address, and he put in place the original funding stream. That's really, I think you heard in the two presentations that each of those fund managers were pretty impressed that we've got some funds in place for this liability in advance of needing it, and we have something to work with. So, I think the number was 67%, 68%, depending on the discount rate. That's pretty high compared to where many of the municipalities and government entities are. So I'll give Pat the credit for doing that, but I do have some of the context and the backstory as to how it got started. And of course, OPEB is separate from the retirement funding stream, which needs its own solution. I know Mary and others are working on that. And I think that's probably more of a legislative discussion. It's a bigger number, but it's separate from the OPEB. So the OPEB is just that, other post-employment benefits, medical, dental, anything that would go to folks who are retiring. And it's a good chance, as the council leadership is changing and as new delegates are coming on, to reconsider it. And of course, boy, what a crazy year to be in the stock market, right? So it was an anomaly, and I think our fund manager played it correctly with the direction that we'd provided to stay the course, and that's proven to be sort of the right answer over time. So what I've been able to do thus far is I've reviewed the videos of the April 27th Finance Committee meeting and then the two presentations at the April Council meeting. I've looked over the Odyssey Advisors material, and I can see some sessions coming up with Mary, with Brenda, with Charlie, maybe with Odyssey, maybe some outreach to other RPAs or other entities, maybe even the towns that are involved with OPEB funding, either with Rockland Trust or with Pequot. So with that said, I've kind of codified my concerns or my questions into two sort of question sets. One of them is about the liability, and the other one is about the funds. Like, defining the liability, reviewing the actuarial analysis. I'm not an actuary, but I do feel qualified to do this work. Haven't been involved with the council 20 years, and have a master's degree in management. So, I feel like I can add something here that might be as objective as possible given the circumstances. It was tough for me to slip away from being involved with the council, I'll be honest. But
It was tough for us to let you go.
well, I appreciate that, Lee. And I was humbled and pleased when Mary reached out about this little bit of work. So so to get back to the questions that I see, one train of thought is about the liability. When is OPEB going to be fully funded? I did pick up that there's a trust agreement that has to be set up. I'm curious about that. I think that's a legal question, but I think it does sort of play into the context of learning about this and helping folks understand it. There are questions about even the sick time payouts. I know there's discussions ongoing, probably with the personnel committee about that, the sick time and, final payouts as folks get ready to retire. I'm curious if that actuarial analysis includes that, or if it represents what will be the newer approach to that. There's also a question of Medicare eligibility. That was mentioned in some of the material that I was reviewing with Odyssey, that, some of the OPEB disbursements may actually be funding things that might be eligible to be covered under conventional Medicare. So I don't know about that yet. And I know Medicare is its own, Gordian knot, but I'll look into that a little bit, and I'd be curious how other communities and entities have dealt with that. I also picked up that there was a short report in between the 2-year requirement for actuarial analysis. I'd be curious if we're, I don't know, Mary, have we done that before? Have we done the short report, or is it a new GASB requirement?
Charlie, I may refer this to you.
Yeah, I think the GASB requirement now is every 2 years you do the actuarial analysis.
Yeah, and they've been doing that.
Yeah. Do you do the short report in between?
I
Like an interim?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know
don't
originally it was GASB 45, and then that was sunsetted in 2017 to become, was replaced by GASB 75.
75, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's a question. It's sort of a check-in on the assumptions made in the actuarial analysis in that interim year. So I think, frankly, and other entities have gotten so far off track with their OPEB funding that the short report may be more necessary with other entities. But obviously, I think we're in pretty good shape because we funded it pretty healthy, with a healthy funding for a pretty good long term here. So to summarize about the questions on the liability, I would just say why we need this, where we are now, and sort of what's ahead. I'll pause and take a break there and see if anyone has questions at this point for me. Or not.
When I think part of it is that not only the finance committee, but as the council, they've heard it twice in terms of both the Rockland Trust presentation, back in August, then again this year, and then hearing from the county. So I would say this is kind of the reason why you've been hired, so we can have you just focus just on this. So I'm not getting distracted. We need to really focus on this. And I think that's exactly, from my perspective, I think you're on the right track of doing the things that you've been asked to do.
Great, thanks. Okay, so the second sort of question set would be about the actual funds themselves. I'm very curious to learn how other RPAs are funding this or not. I kind of think we're probably among the leaders in that, but it would be helpful to find out where other RPAs are. I'm also curious how many other OPEB trusts does Rockland Trust manage? Obviously, Peacock manages a number of them. He shared the client list, but I don't know Rockland Trust's experience with it. I mean, obviously we have a good long-term relationship with Rockland Trust, and there's value in that. Question to be answered is sort of the periodic rebalancing. I think we've sort of set it and forget it, and let the fund stay as it is. And I don't think we've really, or from my recollection, I don't think we really provided much in terms of direction to the fund manager to change anything. And I think that's a question, especially looking back at an anomaly year. What is our risk tolerance? We need to look at this, I think, as a very long-term investment. What would be the time to consider rebalancing? And then the question of whether there are alternative funding options, even within Rockland Trust. We could provide a different direction. There's also one of the things that Odyssey talks about is an investment policy. You know, you can develop a policy statement about what your investment objectives are and the periods at which you're going to review and maybe rebalance. So, you know, I'm hopeful to look into that a little bit and talk. That's definitely going to involve some discussions with Brenda and Mary. Maybe to a lesser extent, there's a question about impact on bond rating. I don't think we're the sort of the same as a municipality where they're sort of always going to the bond, you know, issuing bonds. I don't think that's really an issue with us. But and then the final question about the fund, the management of the funds, comes to disbursement. So the intent of the OPEB is to have money available for disbursement as it's needed by those that have retired. Obviously, PCOT with PARs behind them has the experience about that. I don't know if Rockland Trust has experience with disbursement of funds. I can't imagine that it's that complex nowadays, you know, with ACHs and EFTs and such, but it is something that I would like to ask of Rockland Trust, you know, with advice and consent to the Finance Committee here. So in terms of maybe final thoughts on this, again, I think I can bring an objective analysis. You know, I'm less than a year removed, but 20 years involved. And, you know, the analysis would be sort of a classic SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. I think there are different risk factors between Rockland and PCOT, and it's not necessarily financial risk. I think there are sort of political risks that, you know, exist with PCOT that may not exist with Rockland Trust, and there are political benefits that exist with PCOT that won't exist with Rockland Trust. So, you know, my analysis would be prepared with the intent to provide you the information to make a decision. This is not going to be my decision. You know, it'll just be a quick outsider, maybe not so outsider, look at this and, you know, help you to make what I hope will be a good decision. So, you know, looking back on 20 years with OCPC, this was actually a big win. Realizing that we set this in motion at a good time, and you know, we have $877,277 to look at. You know, there's a lot of RPAs, I'm guessing, that would be happy to have that problem. So I certainly don't want to screw it up looking backwards at it, and hopefully I'll be able to provide some clarity for your decision. So I think that's kind of it. I'll pause there and ask if folks have questions or concerns about how I'm approaching it thus far.
I guess my only question would be, what would the timeline look like?
So, Mary, I think we're hopeful that I think it sounds like you're hopeful there won't be an August meeting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But September council meeting is what we're aiming for Bob's recommendation to be presented, which means the finance meeting prior to, but remember there's call it the special finance committee to just talk about this. So there may be a finance meeting for this very purpose when Bob's ready with some further analysis. Because I don't think having analysis be given the day before the council meeting is the way to go. You really want to be able to have, you know, so while there's no council meeting, I think there may be a finance meeting to really see where he is and how far along he's gone. He's going to be talking to, I think her name's Catherine. He's going to be talking to Rockland Trust. He's going to be talking to council members, going to be talking to staff. There was a gentleman named Matt Keswick, who I know he does some lobbying work. He represents the county system, PCOT. And so all of a sudden I said, yep, we have somebody independently looking at this. He did talk about, and Charlie alluded, and so did Tom O'Brien talk about it in his presentation, that the state has a OPEB account, and it's called PRIM. It's the PRIM board, which as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But it is very stagnant. It is, once you're locked in, you're locked in. It doesn't give the capabilities as the other two. But that, I have his number, and I'm going to send an email to you so you can reach out to him, Bob.
Thanks.
So the time frame really is, well, may seem aggressive, but Bob's going to give me a heads up if in fact, holding a meeting in like later August to see where he is with his findings. And if it's not done in September, then it will be done in November. But it really is aiming for the September.
I'm with you, Mary. I'm aiming for having this done in September. Yeah.
Yep. I'm
In
just-
advance of the council meeting, because I think you're right. I think there should be a little time after, my presentation for the committee to consider it, and maybe even you have a separate meeting or after I take off or whatever. But yeah, I'm happy to check in during August and September, and look towards a finance committee meeting sometime in either August or September, whatever works.
It'll be something like that for the time frame.
So if I just might be able to add something, and I know I'm treading on thin ice here, so I have to be very careful. And going to a meeting yesterday, the only difference I think that comes to mind here after what I heard yesterday was PARS, if you need to take money out for a retiree, it's up to you to do all the filing and paperwork. Whereas if it's through PARS, they do all the work for you. And that's all I know. Anything other than that, you'd have to check with each individual entity and see what would be involved in that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Sandy. I have questions about disbursement. I think Tom O'Brien kind of paused on that, and I don't think we heard anything about that from Rockland Trust. And
Yeah, so that was one of the things I learned myself yesterday, which was brought to my attention. So that was only one thing I wanted to bring up to you.
Yep. Okay, great.
And keep in
Thank
mind.
you.
Bob, I thought your plan sounded great. It just, I'm in with the PCOT for the town of Plimpton. They handle our, the plan for us, and we've been extremely happy with them. But I just felt like this is a lot of money, and that
Sure is.
we needed someone who was impartial, and then having you with your history with OCPC, you're really such a great fit to take a look at this at a higher level and make a recommendation to us based on all the facts. So we just, it's a lot of money. We want to make sure we make the best decision and use it and make money on it in the best way we can.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like I said, I was humbled and excited at the same time when the thought came up. So happy to stay a little bit involved.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking it on for sure. I think, what we were talking about earlier about, talking about ROM and kind of re-educating the council. I think this is another opportunity to do just that, when you're talking about OPEC, because a lot of people don't realize what that is and what that entails.
Yeah, a bunch of new delegates too. So that's good news, But it can be tricky getting everybody up to speed with some of the stuff that Lee Hartman takes for granted,
Not me.
So I think the message is, Bob, don't go too far because we have some other things for you to be working on too. So
Fair enough.
We have an administrative position that might be open up soon if you want.
Bob,
After Mary goes on
That would be
vacation.
awesome.
so Bob and I have a contract that we signed, we executed. He's being paid $1,000 to not only do everything, but to follow up on this. And if it's something that's beyond the scope of services that have been signed, he will come back to us with any additional time or costs associated with it. So we check in on a weekly basis. This is our weekly check-in this week, is having before the finance meeting. But I think it's important, and for Christine and Sandy, the others who had suggested that we assess what we have right? The most powerful question is why we continue to do it? Why are we still in it? Why can't we do something better? So Bob's going to be answering all those questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
all
Thanks,
right, thank
Bob.
you all. Good to
Nice
see you
having
all.
you
Bob.
back.
Good to see you.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye. So the other thing is, the last that I had sent to everyone, I'm hoping that this,
Accruals.
I'm sorry?
Accruals.
It is. And I had shared a short piece of this last time, and we shared it on the screen, but I shared it confidentially to everybody. So you can see the, just really see in person the names and the amounts. And when Doug and I've had a sidebar conversation and had one with Charlie as well, and maybe Doug, maybe you want to tee this up for you to talk about some things that we are, so while Charlie is on this, and Charlie, if you feel uncomfortable, you can leave, but I think you should be fine in what we're going to talk about next.
So
I'm gonna have to chime in. I've just got a message. I'm gonna have to leave this
Yes,
meeting
okay.
just a little
Alex,
early.
thank you.
breaking my heart,
Coming
Alex.
on board.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. You're good. Thank you.
Take care.
But
Nice meeting
thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
See you
Alex.
tomorrow.
Yes,
Thanks, Alex.
perfect.
So we had talked about a way to eat away at the time that's owed to Charles. And I wanted to, I came up with an idea and I did run it through Mary and Charles when I was there last week. I wanted to come up with a way that was best for everybody. Sitting there and having Charles take all his vacation or lose it wasn't the right thing. But from our perspective, cutting him a check for all of it isn't the right answer either. So what I had mentioned was almost similar to what we have done, at the VA. It's like a buyback program where, every year he'll slowly start eating away at it. So, say, he's at 910 hours. Every year he gets 120 hours that he accumulates. My suggestion would be, all right, well, you know what? Have him take 200 hours a year, 5 weeks, 5 weeks a year, and that 80 hours would be taken out of his carryover. We would then pay him for another 80 hours. So it would be a 50-50 type thing where he would have to use this time, and then we'd pay him for the same amount that he uses. So over time, he slowly eats away at it, and we slowly buy back what he's owed. The reason why he has so much saved up is because he expects to get paid for it all when he retires, right? That's the reason why people save so much vacation time. And now that this has been voted on by the personnel committee and that it's passed, I think the easiest way to do it for everybody would be like a hybrid approach where you're like, okay, listen, you have to take, your whatever you accrue that, plus that 80 hours. So, 5 weeks a year. Well, at the end of the fiscal year, you'll get paid for the 2 additional weeks. And, after four years, it'll be up to him to manage his 210 hours. To me, that was like one of the best examples I could think of to kind of work with both, coming in as someone being objective to both. But if any suggestions or remarks on anything like that, what do you guys think?
So Doug, let me just also supplement that. So early on when we were doing our personnel policy and there was that whole discussion about carryovers and, there was a comment like, oh, Mary, let's just try to figure out something for just Charlie and just go with it. And we never did. We have capped in the personnel policy, right? The carryovers, and we need to manage people so that they are taking vacation time. So Charlie, since the last time he is putting in for vacation time. And it's only a discussion at this point. There's nothing in this year's budget. We're not putting it in this year's budget, but as we plan for next budget, just to start the seed of thinking about this. And I think out of any of the staff members, he has probably the most to lose in terms of dollars. And, you know, in talking with Doug, just trying to figure out a way to, if not everything, obviously, then even if it's 50% something, and again, you know, that's a negotiation, and Charlie's supposed to be thinking about this and putting together a plan. But I think it's at least begin the conversation.
I do like the buyback provision, and we have that in one of, I mean, I lose all my vacation anyway, but I do at least get to buy back a couple weeks every year. And that is a way to kind of slowly whack at the number by buying back each year.
Doug, could you explain the plan again? I wasn't really following what you were thinking.
So every year he accumulates 120 hours, right?
Okay.
So my proposal would be for him, and I mean, this is just an example.
Yep.
So it's not written in stone or anything like that. My suggestion would be for him to take 200 hours a year. So take 5 weeks, okay? That 200 hours, 120 hours is what he'll accumulate for the year anyways, right? That extra 80 hours is going to be taken out of what he accrues, right? So say you do it, we owe 910 hours, right? And he has to eat away at that accrual 910 hours. So if you do this for like a 5-year stretch, he'll eat away at half of that, you know, because 80 hours a year times 5 is 400 hours. So what we would do then is then at the end of the fiscal year, we would buy back the amount that he's using. So it's a 50-50. It's not all done at once. It's, you know, he'll use that extra 80 weeks, which is accrued, and we'll buy back 80 hours a year of which is accrued. So at the end of 5 years, that's 800 hours that he used, instead of cutting him just a massive check. Because I mean, that was the one reason why we changed these rules to begin with, was because we had to give Pat a massive check. So I think if we do it on a year-by-year basis and just slowly eat away at it, you know, it's a 50-50 split where he has to use these hours, but then, you know, we'll pay him for the 50%. You know what I mean? So he'll use 80 and we'll pay him for 80. And you can do that until it slowly eats away at what you actually own to bring him back under the cap.
Okay.
And then after that, it's up to him. You know, he has to manage, it has to be managed at some point. But I think once it's under the cap, then, you know, it's, like I said, it's up to him to manage that himself.
And a lot of this, you know, trying to do this with Charlie by committee is a little tough. So,
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
think
So
to some degree, we need to have Charlie and Mary talk about it, have Charlie be as honest as he can about what he thinks he can and do, and come back that way. I would never want to have this done for me by committee.
no,
Can I just ask one question? Is Ray just the healthiest horse in the world? Why does he have such an unusually high amount of sick time compared to everyone else? Just the sick time number jumps up at me. It's
Charlie, do you know that answer? Oh, you're muted.
So Ray's been here 16 years. So 16 times 105. He's generally healthy, doesn't take a lot. You know, mine's been cut down a little bit because for one reason or another, had to be laid up for the surgery here and there. And that's, you know, that's a month here and a month there, for like a knee reconstruction. I mean, that cuts into that time. So
I was just curious. Yeah, so if you said it was 105 for 16 years, that would be 1,600 sick days. So it's, you know, a third of that.
You know, and the other thing, right, it still remains in our handbook that you have to be here for 25 years to cash out
Right.
your sick.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I mean, there's all that combination, and I again, I bring this only, you know, in talking with Doug, to plant the seed, no decision.
Right.
I didn't want to have any kind of conversations if this was really like saying we really are heading down a path. So nope, we don't want him to lose out on anything, but nope, we don't want to be paying out at one time. And if there's a way that we can negotiate, and as you said, Lee, to come up with a plan. And when we get ready to maybe start looking at the budget for next year, to really start implementing about what that will be, because we'll need to do it over a 5-year period of time.
And there is a possibility this could apply to someone else too, right? There could be a few other people here who choose to stay on for.
So Charlie
Yeah,
did,
maybe.
Charlie did a pretty, I don't have it here, but Charlie did a really like incredible analysis of what it's going to take and who's here. Like, you don't have to worry about me, and you don't have to really worry about Brenda. And I mean, it's that combination of how long people have been here and who really is
Yeah.
ready to retire. It really is up. The really other person is Lila Burgess. And if you look back here at Lila, she uses her
Yeah.
time,
Right.
right?
Right.
And again, you know, that she takes months off or weeks off, or not months off, but weeks off. So, you know, and the other thing to keep in mind too is we're giving employees a year before we implement that cap. So someone like an Andrew Vidal, who has a lot of time, these numbers are a little bit dated too, but he's been chopping at his numbers. Charlie's been saying you got to take some time, and or you're going to lose it. And you know, it's a combination, right? When it was COVID, people didn't have anywhere else to go. So, you know, there's now people are looking to kind of chop away at that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate the leniency in terms of having this be brought up at this time. And, you know, it really was Doug, and I'll be straight out here and say it. I'm just going to close this unless someone really needs this. But, you know, I'll just say straight out and say it from the last meeting. And I looked at the video again, the recording, and Charlie does not have a poker face, because as we were talking about some things, and I'm like, look, what's that about? What's that about? And you know, Doug and I chatted a little bit after the meeting, and then we chatted with Charlie. So I'm not making a recommendation at this time, other than at least start exploring possibilities of buyout and or a cost benefit analysis. That's really all that I'm really at, you know, having this committee be aware of. And, you know, appreciate Doug's thought, because I would have never really thought about that buyout option.
Thank you. Anybody have any other suggestions or
The only
questions?
other thing, yeah, the only other thing I was thinking, and it takes a lot of forethought, is that if Charlie gets to the point where he thinks he's got his 3-year notice, and he, you know, the retirement's based on the 3 highest years of income, at least dividing it by the last 3 years might be a little helpful instead of just 1 lump sum, if nothing else.
Yep. So, you know, there's lots of conversations, you know, within management of having continuity, you know, the what ifs, you know, Charlie leaves, what if, you know, any of the staff leave, and what are we doing in place to train, to, you know, what do you call it, mentor, to have their, so making sure there's continuity of executive director, Charlie in terms of transportation and others. Charlie?
Succession planning.
Thank you.
Right.
That's the word. I'm still working on my coffee from this morning. I haven't finished that. So, but that piece is, yeah, I'm not drinking it, by the way. But that succession plan is really important. Talk about it with the council, right? Things are at least talked about. We need to do the same within the workings. So we, as a side note, we are in the conversation we had with Alex, it was really kind of taking a look. Our next step really is working with Stephen and the personnel committee to look at the job descriptions, look at the organization chart, who's doing what. That part is like the next step, and we're getting there. And Stephen knows that. We'll have some conversation about that. And the only other piece, because it does have an effect, and Bob Moran, it's not on the agenda because I wasn't expecting the hearing to be held, but we have the hearing tomorrow at 9:30. I will send to all of you, I with Charlie's help, I have my statement that's there in terms of the financial impact. I'll send that to the members tonight after this meeting. So, you know, the corrective action, and the hope is that, you know, there've been a couple legislators who said their support and to continue to support the legislation. So hopefully there's a fix that we can not have to worry about the retirement legislation any longer, or the invoice receiving it. So,
Right.
But that does have a financial impact. That's a finance committee, really should be on here and where we're going next with that. So
Mhm.
that's it.
All right, is there
Mary?
anything else?
Just one question. When do you think you and Charlie will have this worked out? Maybe by the end of the year?
That
Come up
is
with a
our hope.
plan?
Yep, that
Okay.
is,
Okay, because it would be nice if there was money left in this year's budget to maybe, you know,
that's correct. Yep,
do something. Okay,
there's a good reason. That's why, and in some ways, not that it deflects my hiring of anybody, because that's not what it is, but it is taking a look at the whole budget, you know, again, the needs and how we're able to juggle everything. So
Great.
this year, as you know, this year, in the fiscal year, there was no merit increases because of the increases that were done.
right.
Previous year, we'll be looking at, you know, again, looking at people's qualities and their work ethic and, you know, their evaluations and how does that implement, and really trying to make sure that, you know, obviously our biggest cost is our personnel. So trying to keep that de minimis, but yet at the same time keeping us functioning.
Mhm.